All right, this segment we're talking about Amazon Interactive Video Service. Okay, so what is Interactive Video Service? So this is a live streaming platform. Okay, we can use Interactive Video Service, basic channel for HD 720p, full HD, and then this expanded functionality is designed to enable streamers and viewers globally to enjoy higher video quality when using a basic channel. So, okay, so who are the users of Interactive Video Service?
So the Interactive Video Service is really cool. Think of the Interactive Video Service as taking a live stream and then adding or embedding that with a larger application that can do really interesting stuff with that live stream. So, for example, if you were doing a sports broadcast, you have your commentary and your live broadcast going on, but at the same time, imagine being able to present all the stats or predictions about what's going to happen in the game. Doing all of that live as the video stream is coming in, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's basically what the AWS service is all about. We're using IVS. In fact, we have to demo this, and it works better when there are multiple of us as part of the conversation. So once I'm back in India and broadcasting from there, we'll definitely do a demo session with IVS, because I think that's a pretty cool service. What we do internally with IVS is we have a lot of meetings that we do across the organization. When you have a few thousand people
working in an organization.
Yeah, completely remote. These online meetings are a big part of our organizational knowledge and our organizational knowledge base. And one of the challenges of remote, as we all know, is when you're doing these Zoom calls or a Chime meeting or whatever, it ends up monologue. A lot of people become disengaged, and the speakers usually have no idea about engagement with the audience. You could have someone literally typing away and doing other stuff. So we've created a little IVS, solution, which takes our Zoom and Chime meetings and so on, and it does real-time live analysis of what's going on in the meeting.
It's building on Amazon's other products.
Correct. It uses Comprehend to understand what the conversation is all about, so they can search it later if it's recorded. You can search for it. You can, figure out what the meeting is about, and you can go back to it. You can refer to it based on the keywords that Comprehend finds and the topics that Comprehend finds. Of course, you can train it with custom vocabulary like we discussed last week. So you can do all that stuff with it. The other thing that it does is it also uses video stream recognition. So it looks at, facial sentiment. So whether everybody's confused, disengaged, happy, or angry, or agitated, to make sure that we are, that the feedback comes back to the speaker and, generally as part of the analysis of the call, you understand who's in what kind of mood.
It's be interesting. Once you have all the data and you've loaded it in some graph database, you can do queries like, tell me everybody who becomes confused after a certain person speaks, and then what do they do? What do they speak about afterwards? Or how's their engagement in their meetings throughout the day? And it's not about surveillance. It's more about trying to make sure that you're effective, right? Because when you're in person meetings, you get all these verbal cues. You get to see people, disengaging, checking their cell phone. But Zoom, you only see what they want you to see, which is great. But also, it's hard to then gauge your audience. I mean, just like right now, I don't know how people are responding to this, and so you just have to get used to staring to the camera and hoping it works. Getting feedback for engagement is really useful. And overall, I think obviously this company benefits of remote work outweigh the cost. But one thing we have to mitigate is try to get better engagement in meetings.
Correct, and that's the engagement is the biggest challenge of remote work. So one of the other things that's really hard to figure out, we rely so much on body language, that kind of feedback. You just don't get that in Zoom or a Chime meeting or whatever mechanism you're using for remote operations. So we are trying to use IVS and AWS Recognition and a bunch of other tools behind the scenes to figure out whether people are engaged or not. By the way, the other kind of conversation that is not very engaging is the one where you have someone literally in a monologue. And if you have 10 people who are just literally staring at a screen, that's not an engaging conversation. That's not the kind of conversation you want to encourage within an organization. So you want, everyone to interact. That's the whole point of these meetings. If it's a monologue, someone should just record it and post it. You shouldn't be having a meeting wasting everyone's time on it.
Actually, I saw a blog post. It was on Hacker News a few weeks ago where a guy built himself a bot because he was a person who he recognized that he liked to ramble. And so it started warning him if he had gone on more than a 2-minute tangent. That was something he'd built personally for himself, a little Zoom bot. But this is something that you could use IVS for, to look at even just the distribution of speakers throughout a conversation. Because and then also if you have people who aren't contributing to meetings, then it's a good tool to know, okay, why aren't they? Is there something about the leadership style, or is there something that can be changed to increase the engagement of all the participants?
Yeah, it also has a big application in all of our DEI efforts. Like inclusion is a big part of what we're trying to do. And when you're in remote meetings and only 1 or 2 people are interacting, as a speaker, you're so focused on conveying your view and your vision or whatever else, and you miss out on the fact that one is not interacting. And if your IVS dashboard kind of shows you that, hey, this person hasn't interacted, you should engage proactively with person A, B, and C, then as part of your communication, your messaging, you can actually ask that person a question and say, do you have any questions? Do you agree with this? Not agree with it? And it really helps with making sure that the conversation is a lot more inclusive. And it separates out modes of communication. One is a meet where you want everyone to collaborate and work together. And the other one is a broadcast where you should record your videos and put them out, and people watch them asynchronously and comment on it or whatever. By the way, we have a very interesting solution on that also. We can probably bring that up during one of the sessions. So we do these little snippets of videos we record, and we allow it to review them, like documents, and comment them. And that makes it really easy to communicate in a more natural manner than having to write these long documents. So yeah, some very interesting stuff built platform. So the fact that now you can support it in full, that's pretty awesome.
It's funny. I was just thinking about that in the context of old hardware. We brought up those 3Com 3C509Bs earlier. And I remember, paired with that was my little quick cam, going into the parallel port. I think it was 60p. I think according to this, it did 320 by 240. And so now thinking that you can play with these 1080p streams is pretty fantastic. That you can have that as just another named object that you can then move around and analyze and have the bandwidth to be able to do that. We're streaming right now from a hotel, and it seems to be fine.
Yeah. By the way, the oldest video conferencing equipment that I ever had was this 1 megapixel. And I don't think we even had a P associated with it. I'd have to work out what that would be. But it was just a 1 megapixel D-Link device that sat on top of a CRT television, and you connected it to your CRT television for video out over those. It was those analog
probably
cables.
Cost $1,000.
Yeah, it was pretty expensive, and it had those analog cables that would connect into your CRT televisions.
Okay, the yellow and red and white ones, like the RCA ones. Okay,
the RCA cables, and then you had you'd connect Ethernet into it. It would connect into your internet connection, and then you would only connect point to point, IP to IP. So,
interesting.
So you need to make sure that your NAT stuff, was simple enough for you to navigate through it, or set up port forwarding and solve all of the issues, so that you actually connect point to point between those two devices.
Oh, it to do with the actual route itself and this.
You had to manage all of that. It had no mechanism of doing any of that stuff. And from that, we moved to these life-size. I don't know whether so life-size got bought over by Logitech, I think, at one point of time. And I think over the years, we started remote work back in 2008. Even then, 2008, video conferencing was in its infancy. Nothing like what we have today. So I'm glad that we have full HD and more. We can do 4K. Aren't we broadcasting 4K here?
I think we are. I'll have to check the StreamYard. Yeah, we're broadcasting whatever's not supported by StreamYard. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and we are sitting in a hotel room in a makeshift, setup.
We gotta get a picture of the studio before we take it down. This is pretty good.
Absolutely.
All right, so interactive video service. How do we rate this? I think
this one is relatively simple and straightforward. So, I think in terms of content, it definitely simplifies. In fact, more than simplified, it actually makes the service more useful in the current context. And I'd rate this 4 or 5.
All right.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward and simple. So
yep, nothing. Yeah, it's a new feature. Very much. How could you complain having now you can do 720p, 1080? That's pretty good. All right. Well, let's switch gears over to personalize. Or no, we are doing AWS Config.